So today we are going to talk about the Trace Charm. So here is actual footage of Niantic and WB fixing the Trace Charm.
Not to worry, Harry. I will fix that
Charm.
of yours straight away.
No, not you.
Oh, poor boy, he doesn't know what he's saying. Now, this won't hurt a bit. Brachiam. Emendo. Yes, well, that can sometimes happen. But the point is, you can no longer feel any pain. And very clearly, the traces are not broken.
Broken? There's no traces left.
Much more flexible, though.
So yes, I am going there. I'm going to go through the Trace Charm stuff. Right, so we put out the form, the questionnaire doofer, with the questions in it. And quite a lot of you responded, which is good. So I had lots to play with. I got a little bit from everybody in here. So I'm going to go through things that you said. And as I'm a older person, I'm just going to give my 2 cents as well. I'm also in the development job kind of thing, where I sort of design software and build it for customers. And so we'll go through your questions, your answers, my opinion, so reasons why this may have happened the way it did. And then we'll also go through actual proper development procedure. The one that Niantic should take note of, because these things shouldn't happen if you do it properly. So I'll be looking down at my tablet quite a lot during this one, so to bear with me. So the first question, what do you think of the change? A random name says, hugely disappointed. As a role player, its introduction had a great impact on the game, giving us an opportunity to get traces we rarely ever see. Now we're back to traces you get from a tonic. I haven't played for 3 days as a result of the boredom. Mary Kay. I'm not happy. I keep up with the game news a moderate amount and didn't even realise it was a bug. Also seems like something they could have left bugged during the lockdown/COVID restrictions. Ruthless Moose. I do love some of these names. I think a nerf is always disappointing, but buffs and nerfs are a natural part of any game development. It's hard to deny that it was incredibly OP in the broken state that it was. Dan Birch from Bridget and Dan. I think the Trace Charm, as it was overpowered and knew they would nerf it at some point. It's actually in their video. You should watch it. But their communication on the issue has been poor, and the timing is also bad with how the changes have been rolled out. Testing of these features would have made them realise the issues before making them live and waiting a month to communicate bugs that would be changed. Now, the way that actually Dan says the word features means he's probably a programmer. Flosso 101, great. Glad it's more balanced now, and there's still some challenge in the game. Casting a Trace Charm on an emergency gave you 8% of total emergency needed per efficacy, which is 2 OP. We'll clear what efficacy is in a bit. Actually, next question. Bruta, I'm frustrated. Yes, it was powerful, maybe too powerful, but it was so much fun. Muggle. The wording on the known issue thread was not very clear. Also, there's an official post that stated, I'm paraphrasing, the text was incorrect, and no mechanics would be changed to the Trace Charm. The communication is lacking. They need a social media manager. They do. They had one, and they never replaced them. ZZ still ZZ. Poor communication from Niantic as per usual. I'm good with it now that we know how it actually works. And for Annie, I think it sucks, especially how sudden it was. So in summary, I think we can all agree that the Trace Charm, as it was launched, was definitely overpowered. I could easily repeat image collection and emergency foundable if I wanted to, because I would get 5 of those foundables at 2 fragments a go. So that's like 10 fragments for one Trace Charm. So yeah, it was pretty powerful. So I don't think the actual mechanics of the Trace Charm is the problem. Really, I'll clarify this later. And compared to the other charms, this is way, way more powerful than any of them altogether. So we kind of knew it stood out a little bit too much. So Muggle brings up a valid point when he mentions the post from WB about the change, saying it was only a text change in the OSS skills tree. There seems to be clear miscommunication between Niantic, WB and Portkey Games on these issues. yes, Portkey is also WB, but it's kind of weirdly a different entity altogether. So this brings us to question 2. So question 2 is, what's the change to communicate well? Would better communication have helped how you feel? Foxtrot Rider. I don't think the problem lies in the communication. If the company has a complete disregard for the time, energy and money that players put into the game, no amount of communication is going to save that situation. The poor community manager tells us we won't lose progress, or that a game mechanic isn't going to change, and they just keep ploughing ahead, acting like they are not the ones being incompetent/irresponsible and now unethical. I just no longer have a drop of faith in the organisation that builds the game. The incompetence I could have forgiven, and did, re Fragment Gate. That was when we lost a whole load of fragments, that was all rebalanced. But I draw the line at these increasingly fraudulent practices. Falcor Energy Wook. Hard to imagine how they could have done I wish you shouldn't have asked for your usernames. Hard to imagine how they could have done worse than delaying for way too long, and then being completely wrong about what they were going to do, and then they finally did say something. Anonymous. Communication was horrible. They said they were going to change text, and they changed the mechanics right before Wizarding Weekend. The Great Claw. Oh, definitely not communicated well in my opinion. This is the theme of late. Better communications could help, I think. There would still be unhappy people though, definitely not avoiding that. Sunset Sapphire. The change wasn't clearly stated in the post. In fact, it was misleading. If they would have gone the extra step and asked someone who wasn't knee-deep in the process, if the post sounded accurate, it may have been revealed the communication wasn't stated accurately. Yes, I think if they would have given an example with a visual and stated with clarity what changes would be occurring and forced and scheduled the change after an event, and it would have cushioned the frustration. Change isn't accepted easily to begin with, but to show the differences, clear explanations, and when to expect it does help. Sorry, I struggled for the last one. That's entirely my own fault. So my thoughts on this one, yes, communication is key with these things, and I join Foxtrot Rider in saying how I feel bad for the community manager, which doesn't actually exist anymore, but has actually now fallen to Lola since Phases moved on. This is not their primary job. They actually have other work to do, so I really feel sorry for them because they get all this flack. And it's nothing to do with them really, they're just doing what they're told. So I wonder why, when the Trace Charm was first put out, why didn't they launch an immediate communication to say there's something wrong with this? Well, I've come up with 3 reasons possibly why this is the case. So the first reason is they don't actually play the game and only realised when people started saying how awesome the Trace Charm is. Secondly, they, as in the development team, didn't know themselves how the Trace Charm was supposed to work properly, and those who designed the mechanics actually didn't check. We'll go into this a little bit later. Thirdly, and I think this is probably the most likely one, they did notice but were stuck. So I'm guessing they made so many code changes when they pushed it to live, because it went out with a whole bunch of other stuff, that they couldn't easily just turn it off. They probably also didn't want to come out and say, oh, by the way, the Trace Charm is way too overpowered, and in the next few weeks we're going to turn it to what it's supposed to do, because everyone would then go absolutely batshit crazy, really push for that Trace Charm and hammer it as hard as they can before it gets fixed. The problem with that is it shortens the lifetime of the game. Of course, they could just release more valuables and expand the registry and make it better, you know, just saying. But this may explain somewhat what Falcor Energy Wook said. Now, I do like Sunset Sapphire's idea that it should run their posts by people who play the game and are not involved in what's going on behind the scenes. So you send your communication to those players, asking them what they think you are saying. Now, preferably, those players will be located in different places around the world and have different experiences with language. Like me in England, I offer myself as tribute. Now, I've actually previously corrected some of the text they kept saying, because they kept saying that master notes are now boosted 50%. Are they boosted by 50%? Or are they boosted to 50%? The latter was what they meant, but the former was what they actually said. So next question, how has the change made you feel about the game going forward? So Thieja, I still love the game and still plan to remain active. It does seem that there is a tremendous amount of sloppy work by the developers, and that does concern me. Bugs are one thing I can live with, but numerous visual, textual and communication issues have me feeling salty more and more lately. Developers have lost a lot of community trust and have a lot of work to build back that trust. I've been ready. It hasn't affected my feelings towards the game. It's rather a small drop in the pond of failures lately. Maz90, disappointed. Not sure I want to continue playing. Trash Panda 43. I like playing. Trace Charm gives less than the previous massive bonuses, but it still helps a lot. Masob, Sorry. I feel betrayed. So my response again, what Thaja says really echoes how I feel. Now, I have a development model I use at work, which is supposed to avoid all these kind of issues, and it does for me. I'm in the middle of a project right now, and we're finding all sorts of interesting things that need to be added to the software we're developing, because the stakeholders who come up with the ideas, once they start using it and playing with it in the development environment, they realise it's probably not quite what they wanted. And Niantic and WB need to realise that the people who pay money are the players who put the most time and effort into the game. To have hours of your life wasted with mess-ups like the registry is really damaging to players. And it must be hitting their bottom line, because I've seen people in the past saying, that's it, I'm not giving them any more money. They have screwed me over so many times. The last thing we're going to say is you can't buy people's time back with a free gift. Life is finite. So any other comments? Zovan, most of the changes and nerfs are geared against us who aren't travelling around. The ingredients don't populate, and traces related to the family we're targeting for events, they aren't populating either. Unless I leave home and I get enough of anything to play at a decent level, let alone skills trees. As soon as the new one came out, my skill level on Fandables dropped. I'm about over them tweaking it. This is to do when we got the SOS skills tree. We actually found that things were harder to catch, and they fleed a lot more, and all that sort of stuff, because they brought all our skill levels down, so we could get the skills tree to bring them back up again. I think it goes a little bit beyond if you actually have a full SOS skills tree, but you know, they brought us all down, which kind of annoyed everyone. Wonder Woman NZ, I think what they should have done was, when they noticed right at the start that the charm was not doing what it was supposed to do, they should have disabled it. Having it broken and dropping so many, we got used to it. So of course, when they fixed it, we were going to be disappointed. I mean, how could we not be? One thing they could do is make the Fandables that do appear on the trace guarantee us field guides, as returning Fandables doesn't always give them to us. Now, that's probably a good idea. Gormand, they let everyone play with this bug way too long before fixing it. If they didn't like it, they should have made the changes way sooner. Thank you for everything you do. Thank you. I didn't put that in there, honest. Kodamum, which is that's a cool name. I lost fragments. It's okay. I'll get them again. I lost fragments again. Sigh, it's okay. They tried. All the fragments are more difficult to return. It's okay. I'll go up in levels and get them easy again. You need to use SOS to make Vandals easier, not game level. It's okay. I'll figure out the tree and work my way through it. We are fixing the text because our players didn't understand our intent. Sigh, this is getting tedious. I wonder what else they're going to do. We are fixing a bug that was the one exciting part of this new SOS. WTF? Seriously? I used this skill to build my SOS. Made returning the same Vandables less boring, gave me a reason to use dark detectors, use more potions. I'm done. I'm not quitting. I'm transferring my playstyle to a free-to-play player. My family gladly supported Niantic games for years because we enjoyed their games. We forgive them their errors, bugs and lack of new content, but no more. Throwing dragons at us like an underwhelming store pack gift in the hopes that we forget and maybe spend dollars to buy keys isn't enough. It just isn't. Prof Pit Boss. Why did they make efficacy and proficiency so complicated? I'm still confused on how they are supposed to work. They should make it simpler to understand. Aha. Quick coffee. Okay, so my turn now. So for Prof Pit Boss, I have to double check this on many occasions, but proficiency is how many traces you get on the map, and efficacy is how many fragments you get from each one. In my head, I think of the efficiency of those traces. The more efficient, the more fragments. But that's my weird brain. So Zovan makes a good point. With many people not travelling around, it's sometimes impossible to get fragments from home. Now, it would be nice if they spread out the fragments more evenly, like Minecraft Earth. If you ever play Minecraft Earth, there are things spawning all over the place, which is very nice, because I went to Romania, Christmas, and I opened up with this Unite, nothing spawning where I was, because it's a location near the mountains. Open up Minecraft Earth, everything's there. It's great. So I actually played Minecraft Earth over Christmas, and not was it Unite because I just couldn't play it. Well, I did play it when I went to the town centre, the city centre. So but you know what I mean. I do believe I've heard on the rumour mill that Niantic are working on evening out the kind of spawn system. So Niantic has the platform that Wizards Unite uses. So there are things where it has data about how dense populations are in certain areas by using Google phone data and stuff like that. So they know kind of where like high densities of populations are. For some reason, they tied spawns to it. I don't know why. Why would you do that? Because there are people who live in less densely populated areas. So you're creating like unfairness in the game just by where you live. I think to make it a lot more even. Minecraft Earth works really well. Wonder Woman and Gormand are right that we have been enjoying this for way too long. We got used to it. So it's kind of like taking candy away from a baby. And then finally, Coda Mum kind of sums up the year nicely. What a roller coaster it's been. How could Niantic, WB, and Portkey fix this? So yes, I, like you, have been knocked off by the Trace Charm. Now, because I'm an old dude, I am not completely knocked off about it. Also, having a development background kind of helps me kind of forgive them a little bit. But yes, it was way too OP. And it was a little bit annoying to put all those resources to get the Trace Charm and have it nerfed. But after having used it for a few days, especially with dragons, it's not bad. But the dragon event is kind of crazy because the amount of times you place repeat image collection, you get that charge refill if you've got that skill unlocked. So I'm using Trace Charms around about 4 or 5 times a day now. It's not the dragons. But yeah, when we go back to normal, obviously it won't be like that. I usually get 2 of that equivalent level, which I think is fine. And of course it's double the trace fragments, which you can improve on as well. So at the moment I get 2 or 4 to 1. So I spot 1 red shard, I put a Trace Charm on it, I'll get 1 or 2 spawns. So I'll get 1 fragment from the original, 2 from the duplicate, so I'll get 3 instead of 1. Or if I'm really lucky, I'll get 5. Of course, it may not be the same thing, but you know, 5 is better than 1. Or 3 is better than 1, depending on how lucky I get. So, this one is kind of for the nerdy amongst you. We're going to talk a little bit about how we develop software. How I develop software where I am. So if you work for Niantic, I would really like you to message me on my email, just kind of how you are doing things, because I don't understand how you're making these mistakes, and I'm going to go into how we do it, and just how these things shouldn't happen. So I am getting on in years, and I spent a long time developing systems for people. Now, these people are stakeholders. They are not the users. There is a key difference. So there are 2 parts to the story of building software. One key ingredient for building software is, well, it's kind of soft. It's having a clear method for development. So the old school method of developing software was called waterfall. Now, as a development team, you would sit down with the stakeholder, so the person who wanted that product, and you would go through everything, how everything works, every button you press, and you build a full specification, and you then go away for months on end, and then you build the whole thing, and you give it to them in one lump. And most of the time, it's not exactly what they wanted. So a newer method that's come out, well, newer method, it's called Agile. So this is where you work out a small part of the software, build it, demo it, and deploy that part. Once you have enough parts, it goes live, and you repeat the cycle. So at launch, you have the minimum viable product, and then you aim for minimum lovable product, and then carry on from there. Now this is kind of, you'll see this in many games, that they'll get launched with a few features, and then over time, new features get added, which kind of feels familiar with the Night Bus and SOS tasks and various other bits have been added. That's kind of the Agile method, but for some reason, Niantic and WB are not following it properly. So what are they doing? What's going on? So the key component of Agile is having the stakeholders together and agreeing what is to be made, then signing it off once it's been demonstrated to them. Now the second part is setting up environments. This is kind of more how your systems are set up. These typically are a development environment. So this is where the day-to-day work is done and deployed to the development environment. I think you deploy to the development environment needs to be in a working condition when you do it. That's the idea. You then have a testing environment. So this is where the work is tested, but on like a much smaller database. So instead of having like millions of players on it, you just have the development team and the stakeholders on there. You then have a staging environment. Now, this is, as hopefully as much as possible, an exact copy of the live environment with all the people. Then your features are deployed here, and then you see and test how well that deployment has gone. As in, has anybody all of a sudden lost all their fragments? this is where that should be picked up. Once you keep resetting this environment, keep redeploying it until you actually get everything that works properly, and then you can launch it to live. So let's use a specific example. Let's call, I don't know, let's pick the Trace Charm, for example. So I will sip my coffee. Okay, so let's pick the Trace Charm as an example feature for our development. So the stakeholders, so which in this case is normally WB, Niantic and Portkey Games, they come together, the game designers, and say we want a feature where players can cast a Trace Charm on a trace, and so many more will spawn on the map. Then follows a discussion between the developers and them, who will then go into a bit more detail. So the amount of traces that appear are determined by your SOS skills tree, along with how many fragments are returned. The traces will be varied across all threat levels, at least one being the same threat as the original. So you put this together. So this would be called an epic, which is a collection of stories, each story being demoable to the stakeholders. So you may have a story for the nodes in the skills tree, which increase the number of traces revealed, a story for the nodes that increase the fragments returned, and a story for the action of using the Trace Charm itself. So your developers would then go off at this point. You have a development cycle, and then this runs like every week or every 2 weeks, depending on what you're developing. I imagine this would be every week given this game. And developers would develop this, put it on a development environment, test it, work out the kinks, and until it's stable. So you work out the kinks by making a set of tests, and those tests are based upon the story. So if I get the SOS node for increasing my charm, amount of charms returned, then those charms go up to whatever. You know, you can write tests based upon that. So then, once they're happy, at the end of the what's called an iteration, that development cycle, they will meet up with WB, Niantic and Portkey Games and demo each of these stories in the epic. So they go through and get in the skills tree thing, and then you would see how it works with the Trace Charm, and then they'll get the other node in the skills tree to get more fragments, and they'll demo that in the game. So this is on a testing environment with a phone, which has the testing version of the app connected to the testing servers, and you demo it there, and then you see if it works as intended. So this is the point in the process that Niantic and WB and Portkey Games, the guys who come up with the idea of the Trace Charm, would have gone, wait a minute, that's returning 7 of the same foundable. That can't be right. And it'll go back, be rejected, the story will be cleared up, and the bug will be fixed, and then they'll go around again, demo again, and then if that passes with the version that we have now, then it can move on to the staging environment. So once signed off, it is deployed to staging. It's then tested with samples of real accounts, so my accounts or your accounts. They could be anonymized, but they basically pick a pool of them with different configurations, people at different levels. They would then, see what their accounts are before, do the upgrade, test their accounts, make sure they haven't lost fragments or any other weird stuff they managed to get going. So in this way, they try to replicate the real world as much as possible and real users, and also test what happens if someone uses an older version of the app with the newer server version. Make sure nothing weird happens like that. Basic testing plan, yeah. And for major upgrades like that, you would go through everything, literally every feature of the game. Make sure the light bus works. You make sure you're collecting registry fragments as it should do. The repeat image collection's working as it should do. That your potion ingredients are fine. That sort of stuff. So once all this testing is done, you then deploy to the live Play Store, App Stores, and then deploy to the live game servers. And that's how you don't screw it up. So in theory, it's how you don't screw it up most of the time. I mean, yes, it's not foolproof. So yes, you may end up with an OP feature this way, but it's not a bug because everyone designed and agreed to it. It's not actually a bug, it's just overpowered. So then you just nerf it. But a lot of these things which are overpowered, you can do some simple maths, and then you can just calculate a lot of things from it just with a calculator. So hopefully it gives you a bit of insight into the world of development as kind of it should do. It's kind of, that's really kind of cut down. I mean, the book on it's not that thick, but it's kind of a simplified version, and hopefully it gives you a little idea on how development is being done nowadays on games. It gives you an idea of why things are released in stages. Of course, if you are a developer and I've missed anything blatantly obvious, let me know, because obviously I adapt Agile for my own methods. I actually have some really cool stuff with Teams now, meeting my stakeholders on Teams. we actually get quite a few people involved. Actually get some of the users involved as well in some of these things. It's actually quite good if they're a small pool of users. So if you're from Niantic or WB and you're reading that and you say, yeah, we do all that, but it doesn't seem to work all the time, just let me know what it's like for you, because that way I can help tell your story a little bit, and maybe people just don't think you're being absolutely batshit crazy. Also, if you are a developer as well, and I missed any bits out, you pop them in the comments below. If people are interested a bit more, they can read up down there. But yeah, it's an oversimplified version of it. So hopefully that helps explain a few things. It may not help you feel any better about it, but hopefully I've given you a little bit of a voice. I guess we can only go forward. I actually spend money on some silver keys for this event for the dragons. I bought 10 silver keys and almost got a second page prestige. So I went from base to bronze and very close to one. I've got half a kilometre left to walk now, and I got that one to silver. And I'm going to try and get the next one to silver as well. I got all the dragons, naturally, because there's billions of them. It's just walking those port keys is a bit of a pain in the butt. There had to be some bottleneck, otherwise we'd all get it to gold immediately. And, can't all be Plotter 101. Who has completed their registry. So that's very impressive. They also sent me a screenshot of their ministry ID page. And you've got to do a fair amount of work to get your registry completed. It's like 3 times the amount I've done. So, that's some seriously dedicated player going on there, so congratulations. So next thing we'll probably be doing is the Brilliant Event Deep Dive. Hopefully we'll have the dialogue for that as well. So hopefully that'll come out on Monday, as the event starts on Tuesday. That would be nice. So don't forget to follow me on Twitter at the Zealman for the latest news, as when things happen. Instagram for pretty AR pictures. I've taken a few of the dragons, haven't posted them just yet. I also have a Twitch, which I don't really use. What I'm really waiting for is us to be able to do proper groups on the night bus. And I'm also working on a Discord. I've basically created it. That's about it so far. But of course, having a child with a full-time job and also work at college, and this is like the craziest time of the year to be working. So it's kind of all hands to the pump, and I'm absolutely exhausted by the end of the day at the moment. But yes, I will be trying to do some lunchtime streams if I ever get lunchtime back again. Anywho, hope you enjoyed this one. Hit the thumbs up if you liked it. Don't forget to subscribe. Spread the word about the channel if you can, because the algorithms are not friendly to us UK folk. And brush up with your spells. Get you all ready. Wizards unite.